Hey, everybody, welcome in. It's Laura from Tenacious Taurus Tarot and Astro Insights, and I have a massive message for the collective. And so I came into these channeled messages starting around the new moon in Scorpio. I journaled a lot over the weekend, last weekend. I've been having issues with recording the message and putting it out there because I've had to keep adding to the message over the last several days. And so I'm finally able to sit and put the whole message out there. I can't wait to share this with you, but basically it was very loud. It was very clear. They need to hear your story. Art is truth. And so whether this was a direct message for me or a message for you, I was guided to share this with the collective. And so they do need to hear your story. Art is truth. We are all here to be creators of art, no matter what that might be. And so this is all about blending the story of the past and bringing it into the present, because ultimately, if you are on the awakening path and you chose to awaken to these higher truths this lifetime, then you are on the path of healing generational trauma and past life trauma. And so this really is a key time, I feel, for epiphanies. That Scorpio new moon was all about getting deep, was all about going into the depths of the underworld and kind of unearthing or spiritually excavating that truth. And so this really is a key time for epiphanies, and we are going into a full moon in Taurus. And so these energies are asking us to open up the doorway, to open up wide to all of this truth, because come that full moon in Taurus, there's going to be an epiphany. There could be old wounds surfacing, definitely old unresolved insecurities coming up for a lot of us. About having our voice heard was a big message. A lot of us were silenced in a past life, or we were killed, or we were crucified, or we were burned at the stake in a past life for sharing our voice, sharing our truth, sharing our story. And so there's likely unresolved traumas associated to not having your voice heard. And this can go all the way back to the inner child and the inner child not being validated. And so all of this is kind of like resurfacing right now for a lot of us that have been called to do this healing work. And so you might feel like, once again, you're kind of being forced to contend with the past, to look back at the past, to face the past doubts and the fast energy. Like these revelations, these epiphanies, they are coming in so fast. And so what I was shown was like a blank canvas, and I was walking up to this blank canvas and I heard returning to the drawing board. And so this is kind of where I'm at personally, and I wanted to share that with you. It's like returning to the drawing board, a re-examining of the path, my business, the channel, the services that I offer, a revising of my plans, a revising of the vision for the business and the spiritual community at large, for where I'm taking the channel moving forward. And so you might feel that way too, like returning to the drawing board, but like the drawing board was blank. So we're kind of going into a blank canvas. And so it's like a slate cleaning energy, and we're in this portal, I feel, going into the full moon in Taurus, and it's going to be conjunct Uranus, which is all about innovation, all about change. And when I think of Taurian energy, Taurian is so deeply rooted in traditions. It's connected to the Hierophant. And so this really is an intense time. We are, as a collective, I feel, being called to face our shadow self, to integrate our shadow self. And this literally feels like you're facing off with all of your biggest fears. And that was the best terminology that I could come up with, like a face-off, like in hockey. And it's terrifying to go through a face-off, right? You want to win that face-off. And so anyway, this really is like a time of collective reckoning. But the truth is always going to set us free, right? The truth kind of reckons our lives, but the truth is the truth. And so art is truth. And so there's really no way to kind of tip around the truth, or to tip around our insecurities, because they're always there. They're always going to be re-triggered if we don't properly face them and integrate the shadow self around these past wounds. So let's keep going, guys. We gotta go deeper. We gotta go deeper. We can't keep doing surface level relationships. We can't keep avoiding dealing with these unresolved past pains, heartbreaks, relationship issues, childhood issues, past life issues. It doesn't matter how painful it is to face this truth. This is kind of how we step back into self-empowerment. So questions that I had to ask myself is, how do I deal with power and control issues? Sometimes I have a hard time dealing with power and control issues. I don't know about you, but I don't like to be controlled. I kind of like to have the last word sometimes. I've lived on my own for so very long. I'm always in power. I'm always in control. And so I really had to sit with that. Like, if I were to receive love in my life, would I rescind any power? Would it be mutual, respectful power where there's no controlling dynamics? So sit with yourself. How do you deal with power? Ask yourself how you deal with power. How do you deal with status and the need to be in control, right? And so it's almost like everybody wants to have that high status. So what I do, I don't do this for the status. I trust that eventually my message will reach the masses, will reach who my message is supposed to reach. And I trust that a higher power is leading me to exactly the right people at exactly the right time. And we need to put trust in the universe, right? There's no need to control or micromanage the universe, because ultimately we can't. We're not in control. And so I felt like an oppositional energy between Capricorn and Cancer. And so for me, these energies, they sit in my 5th house and my 11th house, and I've got Pluto just on the cusp of the 11th and the 12th house. And so my 12th house is in Aquarius at 1 degree 12. And so pretty much Pluto's just about to transition into my 12th house, and it's going to be there for a little while. And so I've kind of gone through this awakening process, and I'm kind of just doing like the cleanup layers right now is kind of what it feels like. I also know there's a reckoning coming for me, because the 12th house is the house of karma, 707, and the 12th house is the house kind of where we bury the past. And so how many of your past fears and wounds have you become conscious of? Because we ultimately have to become conscious of the fears and the wounds in order to integrate them. So let's talk a little bit about relationships, because relationships and friendships and romantic partners, these are the very vehicles that we use as a human for strengthening our commitment to what it is that we value. And so we learn what we don't like, what we do like within relationships. We learn how to harness boundaries and maybe understand power and control dynamics, or where people overstep their boundaries in these types of relationships. It can be family, it can be friendships. Like I said, it can be romantic partnerships, because ultimately the spiritual path, the awakening path, is asking us to commit to what we personally value, hold that vibration, and trust that that vibrational frequency match is going to come according to divine timing. Okay. And so these old wounds that we do have to kind of deal with over and over and over and over again are going to be triggered through relationships. That's how wounds get triggered. It can be a relationship with a complete stranger out at the store, but these wounds get triggered with interactions with people. And so it is with interactions with people and relationships where we rehash the same old patterns over and over and over again until we decide to get off that monkey wheel and to stop repeating the patterns. And then we have to consciously do the work to course correct. And it takes time to undo patterning that has been a part of your life, your entire journey. And so we kind of need to reconcile the past traumas and the wounds to gain a healthy sense of self-worth. It took me many years to get to where I'm at today in this very moment where I'm recording. And I do still have doubts, and I do still fall back sometimes, but it takes great strength to step into that worth. And the more you step into it, the easier it becomes, because it's almost like a daily conscious practice. And so how do you nurture your relationships? Ask yourself that. Really sit with yourself and ask yourself, how do I nurture my relationships? And then ask yourself, how do I nurture myself? So how do you nurture yourself? Because you can't nurture other relationships until you fully learn to nurture yourself. That old saying, right? You got to fill your own cup first. You can't pour from an empty cup. But what does it mean to fully nurture yourself? Ask yourself that. because we're kind of in these significant portal of energies, and it's all about healing, it's all about growth, and it's all about transformation. And so we're kind of stepping into the arena of being pushed into our destiny. We're going into 5D Earth, we're going into the age of Aquarius, we're going towards this personal, profound self-development and awakening journey. And these energies kind of got to get brought to the forefront when it comes to any unresolved wounds, so we can integrate them fully, and then we can become the embodiment of the wounded healer. And so to be the wounded healer, it is not an easy path. It's the path of confronting, it's the path of integrating all of our deepest, darkest wounds. I know by human design, my strongest sense is feeling. Feeling is healing. They say that all the time. And when I went through the feeling of the wounds connected to my lineage, my ancestors, all of the trauma that I've gone through within relationships in my current lifetime, it was very painful. It felt like death. I thought I was dying. I actually kind of did die. A part of me died in that transformational state. And I cried for a very long time until the truth was revealed to me. And so to heal these significant wounds, they can be wounds that are emotional wounds. I've 11:11 on the timer. Emotional wounds, psychological wounds, and spiritual wounds. My wounds took me through several past life revelations connected to spiritual wounding. And so we kind of got to heal these wounds, all 3 levels of wounding. And this is where we fully ground into that significant personal growth. And so this process is difficult. It's painful. Not everybody chooses this path this lifetime. It's an opportunity, though, to really step into your fortune, because when you become the wounded healer, that is your fortune. That is you stepping into your personal destiny of confronting these wounds. And one of the biggest wounds that I had to confront on the twin flame path, the twin flame journey, this awakening journey, was the wound of betrayal. And so Scorpio energy was loud for me. I've been betrayed by many, many Scorpios, and that's not to make judgment on the Scorpio collective. It's facts. It's facts. My father is a Scorpio. Both of my daughters' fathers are Scorpio. Both of my 2 ex-best friends, 2 of my 3 ex-best friends were Scorpio women. And so I have had to confront the wound of betrayal connected to several close scorpionic relationships in this lifetime. And so it took a lot of deep introspection. It's taken me many years. My spontaneous Kundalini activation that I went through in 2019. Before this, I ran a home daycare, cards, tarot. None of this was a part of my reality in any extent, in any capacity, until this spontaneous Kundalini activation. I had no idea what was happening to me. That scorpion sting got me really, really good. And I felt like I was going crazy for days, for 3 days straight. It was constant third eye activation, constant downloads. And I thought I was losing my mind. I'm sure I appeared to the outer world like I was a little bit crazy and losing my mind. And I actually did have to spend some time in the psychic ward in the local hospital. And that was traumatizing in itself. And maybe I will go deeper one day. But I had to confront these deepest, darkest wounds. And here I am today, aligned with my highest soul calling. And I feel that's connected to the Pisces energy. I'm a Pisces rising. And so Scorpio sits in my 9th house, which is the house of the subconscious exploration and digging deep into the patterns. And so I kind of had to face this wound of trust and betrayal, And so it wasn't until I fully gave my trust to a certain individual who was not a Scorpio that I was betrayed beyond my deepest emotional experiences this lifetime. And it was with a Cancer man. And so that's also my 5th house. And so that kind of served as like a creative muse energy for me, right? And so when I talk about betrayal, for me, betrayal wasn't just this emotional experience. It was visceral. It activated all of this dormant cellular memory within my DNA structure, and it activated my entire body's nervous system and my Kundalini energy. And then I had to go deep into these inward feelings of betrayal. And it was a deep inward journey for about 9 months, the deepest, darkest depression, dark night of the soul is what people call it, for the longest of times. And I kind of had to feel this throughout my entire body, mind, body, and soul. And there was no reasoning with these energies. And I kind of just had to surrender to the process. And so sometimes we can keep unconsciously too recreating scenarios that are going to test trust with people after experiencing this deep betrayal wound. And so I've not been able to really openly let anybody in since this experience. And it's not for lack of trying. And I am still open to receiving, but sometimes I think unconsciously we can set ourselves up for scenarios to attract more betrayal, especially if we stay in these negative thought processes. And so I know I'm not in the negative thought process, but until we fully confront and excavate that original wound, ultimately we'll never be able to find forgiveness and trust. And so for me, the ultimate wound was connected to past life energy, connected to the Garden of Eden. And then this life, the core childhood wound, would have been connected to my father. The abandonment of my father, the betrayal wound from my father. And so I had to kind of get to that core wound. So the original wound can even be something as simple as not being attended to as a child, right? When you're a crying baby. It doesn't have to be like a great big trauma, but there is we all have that core traumatic wound that we have to face that does affect the very foundational experience of our emotional landscaping as an adult. And so paradoxically, when we're betrayed, oftentimes, we can unconsciously then become the one to manipulate, not all the time, but to manipulate and lie and to do things that contradict what we value the most, which is trust, because of the mirroring effect of the trauma, right? And I know oftentimes empaths will question, am I the narcissist? Am I the narcissist? And if you're questioning and you're self-reflecting, you're not the narcissist, okay? Because to self-reflect is to be empathic. And so let's get back to the Scorpio energy. Scorpio too at times, and this can relate to any Scorpio placements like Sun, Moon, Rising, Venus, Jupiter, North Node. It can relate to the energies transiting through your birth chart on the housing side. But back to Scorpio energy, 9th house, 8th house Scorpio. Scorpio is naturally ruled by the 8th house, astrologically speaking, and I'm a 9th house Scorpio. And so Scorpio oftentimes will seek justice and hurt those they love the most based on their previous betrayals. And so Scorpio too will rarely forgive. My ex, my dad, my exes, they are the most bitter men ever. They will never forgive, even though they're the ones that created the betrayal. It makes no sense. But if you cross a Scorpio, they will likely find a way to get back at you. They can be very vengeful. Not all of them, and I know that's a generalized energy. I have some very beautiful Scorpionic women friends that I adore, that I don't feel this way about them at all. But then if you think of like the Libra energy, so I'm an 8th house Libra, and Libra kind of represents the scales, right? Libra represents the scales, and Scorpio kind of represents the accountant of the zodiac. They'll never forget anything. They will never, ever forget anything that's been done for them, to them, for them. My youngest daughter is a Lilith in Scorpio. Let me tell you, she keeps score. She keeps score. She's definitely a little accountant and never forgets anything. So Scorpio placements just in general sometimes can unconsciously recreate betrayal scenarios over and over in order to get to that seed point to understand the betrayal wound fully. Ultimately, right? We have to get to the seed point or we'll never find forgiveness on the journey. And so how do we usually deal with betrayal? So we can usually deal with it one of two ways. For me, I retreated into my shell and I kind of closed myself off emotionally for a very long time. A very long time. And so that's also part of the healing process, closing yourself off, taking the inward journey and retreating, right? And then the flip side of the scale I would say the retreating part is doing the work and then coming back out after the retreat. But on the flip side of the scale, if we are so deeply wounded, we can use our emotions oftentimes unconsciously as a tool. And we will confront this betrayal through a lot of emotional outbursts, and maybe through seeking to hurt people. And so we kind of have a choice here collectively. We've all been betrayed. We've all been hurt. And so collectively, we keep unconsciously replaying the betrayal scenario. I feel there's a lot of replaying of these negative scenarios over and over again. And so we have a choice right now in these energies, in this portal energy, to either re-experience the same struggles or to cultivate the awareness of the stuck emotions and to learn to build trust. So how do we form genuine connections? We have to learn to build trust again, and it takes time. And in order to be able to form genuine connections and to build trust, we have to establish healthy emotional boundaries. And it's so hard to do that. I know for me, with my Pisces rising, and anybody that has any strong Pisces placements, whether it be a south node, a north node, any major Pisces placements, Pisces energy struggles with setting boundaries. And so we all have all of the energies somewhere in our birth chart. So just take that and do your own research into your own birth chart, because ultimately it's a path of self. It's a path of self-study, self-awareness. And so Saturn is retrograde in Pisces. It's going to go direct the day of the full moon in Taurus, which is going to be conjunct Uranus. And so Saturn is here, I feel, to teach us how to be clear, how to have clear and defined boundaries so that we can work well in our emotional lives with other people and interacting. And so how do you know if you lack healthy boundaries? How do you know? How do you even know? And so first, the biggest sign is if you ignore your inner voice. Trust me, I've ignored my inner voice, and it caused me the worst heartbreak I have ever gone through. And so sometimes second opportunities don't come back around. And sometimes we have to live with the consequences of the choices that we make, and we have to work through those energies, right? So if we ignore our inner voice and we give in to other people's expectations, we can miss out on maybe even the love of our life, right? And so another way to understand if you lack healthy boundaries is if you overshare. If you overshare your life, maybe, or your stories or your day as a way to gain attention, there's a right place and a right time to express yourself, to share your truth. And so sometimes people will choose to overshare as a way to gain attention through manipulative tendencies, or using their emotions to manipulate a situation for personal gain. And this is also done subconsciously. And so I don't say manipulation in a negative form, but oftentimes when we are not emotionally stable or haven't done the work to integrate the shadow self, we will unconsciously emotionally manipulate people for our own personal gain. So we're not alone, or so this person won't leave us. And that is a clear indication of lacking boundaries and even lacking self-respect. So we can't ignore our emotions, that's for sure, or they're going to volcano out the top and you're going to see like flames coming out your crown chakra. But we can't also let our emotions control our lives, right? We can't let our emotions for other people control our lives. And so right now there's an opportunity to plant a seed to get to the end game, to get to the goal. And so basically the ultimate goal, I feel, on the spiritual path is to engage with our emotions, because to feel is to be human, and to engage with discernment. So what is discernment? It means to make a good judgment call. It means to trust your intuition and to be able to judge a situation well. I'll tell you, I'm really good at reading situations. I'm really good at reading people now. And so when we practice using our emotions with discernment, then we can comprehend what is obscure, what is false, what is not aligned. And so when we do this, we have the ability to make smart decisions, and we have a new higher perspective way of seeing things in the world. And so the path of the wounded healer is not easy. You have to trust, you have to act in alignment with your true feelings. You have to take responsibility for your emotions, and And maybe you don't have to take responsibility for what was done to you, but you do have to take responsibility for healing and for forgiveness. And so basically we have a beautiful opportunity right now to understand how to take responsibility. And that is by understanding how to share our emotions respectfully and thoughtfully. And so we want to share our truth, our emotions with the right people and in the right context. Don't overshare. There's a time and a place. And so emotional honesty is always going to be key, but emotional honesty does not mean oversharing. And so clear boundaries need to be in place. And this is something that you just have to work at consciously. And so we have an opportunity, I feel, over the next week or so leading into the full moon to hit that reset button. So to hit the reset button, we have to have clear intentions. We have to be truthful. We have to be responsible, and we have to be respectful. And so are you ready to handle both your own and other people's emotions? Because things are getting a little bit intense. Be mindful, because you don't want to be burning any bridges over the coming weeks, especially with any potential allies. So things might not be exactly as they seem right now. Just be mindful. But we are here for change. We are here to go through this deep-seated healing portal. And if you're feeling restless, don't worry. We're kind of all feeling it in waves. And so we're kind of all being pulled up from our roots right now. And so get prepared for change. That was the message. Get prepared for change. Do not act with haste because your destiny is kind of calling you towards something here. Whatever that is for you. So don't become a rebel without a cause, because I've been a rebel without a cause and it really doesn't serve you. So use this energy wisely, stay focused, and keep your forward direction. So I did get a couple new decks in the mail. Hay House had an amazing sale on, so I ordered 4 new decks I haven't had before. And I did do an oracle card unboxing, and I did pull a few cards, but I was shuffling the cards as I was sitting, getting in to get ready to record, and I was using the Inner Child deck. I was really drawn to this deck because of all of the energies that came up for me recently with the Scorpio new moon. And the 38 card fell out. And then on the bottom of the deck, we get be true to who you are. And so this is a loud message. I feel the Queen of Cups energy coming through with the Hierophant. And so this is a shifting in beliefs, maybe for even the whole Divine Feminine Collective. We are all divine in our right. We are all products of unconditional love. And so you are enough. This is about like opening up the Akashic book, opening up the memories, and you do not have to give more. The Queen of Cups oftentimes will self-sacrifice for those that she loves. And so you do not need to give more if you're resonating as a Queen of Cups, and be true to who you are. This is speaking of fear will not stop you from shining. And so do not allow fear to stop you. Oh, I just noticed it's like a unicorn on the card. If you look at that, a unicorn on the card. And it's got beautiful butterfly wings. And so it's time to spread your wings. It's time, unicorn, whoever I'm talking to. Fear will not stop you from shining. And then below, be true to who you are. We get listen. Your inner child has something to say. So I would like to read out of the book. So I'm hoping you're still here. I hope you stayed with me this far, because there's something that you need to really listen to in order to understand that you will always be enough. So let's get at it. It's a 25 card. So that is the Knight of Wands in the tarot. Key 25 is the Knight of Wands. And so if your inner child is compromised, listen up, because your inner child is comprised of the many different aspects of childhood that we experienced growing up. This is a 1-year-old inner child, a 10-year-old inner child, an 18-year-old inner child. You have an inner child for every age in between. At various times in our lives, different aspects of our inner child will need to be heard. I know I've had to struggle with that raging teenager. This card is indicating that there might be an aspect of your inner child, one who you may have not met with yet, that has a message for you. So take time to connect to your inner child. Visualize your inner child. Be open to what this inner child has to say, and be gentle with yourself, because there's an aspect of your inner child that maybe you don't want to meet. Maybe you're afraid to go into that inner child, but there's a new energy being birthed here. And if you want to step into the doorway of this new cycle, you're going to have to create space. You're going to have to connect to that inner child. And so it's kind of time for a different perspective. So let's read You Are Enough. I do feel it's a strong message for a Queen of Cups, which is representative of Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. Doesn't have to be. But giving of ourselves is such a beautiful treasure, right? To give to those who receive it is a gift. Sometimes we give more than we are able to until there is nothing left within. If you have pulled this card, then it might be time to ask yourself if you have given too much of yourself away. If you've noticed, I've really slowed down on the channel recently because I have been filling my own cup. And with Jupiter retrograde in my 4th house, I've really been focused on the home and the kids. And so maybe you too need to take some time and reflect on the relationship with giving. Do you overgive? Do you know how to receive love? What motivates your desire to give? Does giving of yourself fulfill an empty place within you? Do you give to people please to fill a void? And so do feelings of unworthiness lead you to give? So really sit with that. Do you feel safer when you are in a position of giving? So how do you feel when you are not giving of yourself to others? Do you feel selfish? I know that's a big thing to overcome, is the feeling of selfishness when you give to yourself and you tell people no. So write down how you feel about giving. Write down how you feel about telling people no, because there is some type of pattern or belief here around giving too much of yourself, and I talked about that. And so maybe now is a good time to address this with your inner child. Let your inner child know that it's okay to release the belief or pattern that is leading you to overgive, to people please, because this might be a block. How do you feel about knowing that you are enough and you don't have to give anything to anybody to be worthy? So let's read Be True to Who You Are, and I guess we're going to close it off. I don't really feel like pulling into the tarot. I just wanted to share that message with you today. I do still have some zodiacs I'm getting back on track with, so look for those. I think I got 3 left to get posted from October that I didn't get to, but bonus for you, you're going to get 2 readings this month. So be true to who you are. This is about self-identity and your connection to the full aspects of who you are as a soul, as a human being. And so we all crave to be authentic. And so sometimes when we search for who we truly are, we end up losing ourselves along the way. And so maybe there's fear of not being a part of a group or a connection. And so in order to feel safe, you've been betraying who you really are. And so when we stay places where we know we're not meant to be and we're denying our authenticity, then we're basically betraying ourselves. And so there's that wound of betrayal coming up again. And so we have the ability to mold ourselves, to exit the patterns that we've been placed upon. And so it's kind of like unfolding and peeling back the layers until we reach our true self. And so reflect on what it is you need to do to find your true authentic self. Your inner child will be there. Your inner child will never be untrue to you. So how can you use your voice to be true to who you are today? And that's the message, guys. So if you would like to book a personal reading with me, check out the information box below. I hope you have a great day, everybody, and I do look forward to seeing you all again next time. Thank you.